I think we are now live. According to my little monitor thing, we are live, which is so cool. Oh, and finally, these things came up on screen, like, ages later than I thought they would. Thankfully, I can now put it down here. There we go. Look at this, we're back again. It's so good to be back again. And now you've got to mute, because otherwise it's going to be really, really painful. Look at that.
There we go.
PPs.
I'm done. Yeah. It's come up on my other screen, so I can unmute so you don't hear an echo, so we're all good. So now you can hear my voice for the next hour because I'm just going to keep talking and they're not breathing. So, yeah.
So for those who don't get the inside joke, that's supposedly what I do all the time. I keep talking and talking and talking, and then eventually I stop to breathe, which is kind of true. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I do that. So, you know.
Ha, ha. Do. You said do.
Hello.
Yusuf, hello. Good to see you.
I love the image, profile image. It's beautiful. Love it.
Oh, yes.
So what are we doing here today, Danny?
We are streaming on YouTube.
Oh.
That was a bit of a get out, wasn't it? We're going to be talking about why and what we're doing with the podcast and coming back to the podcast. Maybe YouTube. We haven't decided that yet. We haven't really discussed that yet. Probably talk sort of as we go through the stream. Probably.
Yeah, that's normally what we do. That's how we decide on things, and then it means that no one can get away with it. Yeah, we had. For those who don't know, hi. We ran a pretty alright podcast from, I think, when was it? Late. It ended around January this year.
Yeah.
January this year. When basically it was all my fault. I got busy. Literally, that was the only reason. I got busy.
Yeah, you got very busy, which is understandable considering, like, when you start working, and obviously the 2020 year wasn't great for many people anyway. So
no, it absolutely wasn't. It was not great whatsoever. It was horribly horrible. So, what made you want to come back and do the podcast?
Well, keep your ego in check. But I love having our conversations. It's fun to be able to talk with someone that has sort of been on the same journey as you when it comes to Notion, and is also quite happy to just chit chat on a Saturday morning about some really niche, nuanced, nerdy tech topics. Really, I got some alliteration in there as well, didn't I?
Alliteration. That was beautiful. Absolute beautiful alliteration there. My favorite ever. Yeah, and I think it's kind of been the same for me. I had missed our in-depth conversations about all the things that we used to talk about, which was kind of everything.
Yes, everything under the sun.
Do you still have that chess game between us? No. I think are you still playing chess actively?
Maybe.
What are we now? Like, what ESO are we now?
So, I ELO.
ELO, ESO, ABC, JK, LMNOP. You know I don't like alphabets.
Yeah. The chess game, I believe it's still up. It's probably in the backlog somewhere on the YouTube channel. So you could probably go and see it. My bullet rating is around 1300. My blitz, I don't play blitz that much, but it's probably around 1400. And then my rapid hovers between sort of mid 1500 to high 1500-ish. I haven't quite hit 1600, but then I don't play enough chess to get there. I'm really, really sick and tired of using my brain loads, so I'm just going to chill out and play chess. That's basically why I play.
Yeah, I think I definitely wanted to learn chess at the time, and then just life got really busy. And honestly, Yusuf, you do not want to watch that chess match because it was painful to everybody who watched. Because
I
I was
haven't
like,
watched it back actually.
because the thing is that like you're like, oh no, I don't really know how to play chess that well. I'm not that good at chess. I'm not that good. And I'm like, no, neither am I. I'm really poor at it. And then basically, I proved on that stream how really, really poor at it I was.
So the reason I said I was poor was like at the time I was an elo of about I don't know 850 900, and I don't think you had played, so you didn't really have an elo.
No.
But most people are around sort of like 6 to 900 when they start playing chess, and I was 800. I was like, yeah, I'm not that good. I went from 800 to 1400 in about 3 weeks. Uh, so like the
This is the
learning was
guy who's
quick.
not very good. Yeah.
Yeah. It's learning. It's patterns and recognition. And I will say, like, basically, what I did is I learned one white line and one black line, and I just played them over and over and over again.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. It's pretty simple. So, also another thing that's changed since our last proper, like I think, since our last proper thing on this channel, is you have betrayed Notion.
Yeah, yeah. Sort of, sort of.
So
I mean,
let's talk.
when
Let's talk about that a
yeah,
little bit because I'm very intrigued.
yeah. So when it comes to Esme, hello. Yeah, so when it comes to Notion, the way I see Notion now for me is it's a collaboration tool. If I'm going to do any sort of collaboration work with anyone else, I'm using Notion. Uh, Having said that, though, actually, I responded to a comment literally, I don't know, 10 minutes before this stream, and someone had asked why I use Obsidian rather than Notion. And the main reasons for me, backlinks are better because of the way backlinks work in Obsidian. They're quicker and easier to use, which also relates to speed. Obsidian, because it's local storage, is just quicker. And then the multiple panes is much easier to work with. The local graph view is something that I use that you don't have in Obsidian. But having said that, though, if you're not a big researcher, I don't want to say academic. I'm going to use a term that I have blogged about, an internet academic. If you're an internet academic, not in like a formal institution, but someone that uses research or uses information through videos, articles, blogs, and captures lots of stuff, I know, technical term, then it's quite useful. But if you do any collaboration or you're a visual person, Notion makes more sense. I am not collaborating and I'm not visual.
Yeah, and I think I've been. I think I've spoken to you about this. I am now leaning into more of the kind of internet researcher thing, and I have like
I'm
sort of
laughing at Esme's comment.
been. Oh yeah, I've been on Zoom too long. I literally just went, hi. And so yeah, it's like I've been moving back into internet researchy stuff again after a very long time of not actually being in it. Um, and I am beginning to see Notion's not necessarily flaws, but like how it's just not as efficient and not as helpful for really quick, like boom 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 boom, like being able to connect things really easily. I've hacked the absolute shit out of it to make it do that with multi-layered topics and tags and used that, but even that is still, as it expands and as my kind of topics expand, I'm finding myself struggling with like what's a new topic and what's just a sub thing of that last topic. And that's become a real pain in the backside. Whereas inside of Obsidian / Rome, it's easy. It's so kind of effortless, just off you go one thing and it goes back and forth.
Something I want to say that I think a lot of people don't realize, which is quite interesting. I don't know if you know this. Nat Eliason is, yeah, was a very prevalent Rome research user. He was. He now uses Obsidian.
Okay, we've got to talk about that.
So he switched about 2.5, maybe 3 weeks ago now, he appeared in the Obsidian forum and he was like, "It's official, I've moved to Obsidian." So Nat Eliasson, the go-to person on Rome Research, has a course on Rome Research, etc., 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 uses Obsidian. So, and I'm not saying Obsidian is better than Rome, but the fact that the quote quote guru of Rome Research is now using Obsidian just shows that there are limitations with each application, and I think each application has its feature sets, and when you find that feature set, you're going to move. I mean, I was heavy in Notion. I found a feature set that I preferred, so I moved to Obsidian. And Rome's, even though the Rome cult is so good, like Nat has moved to Obsidian, and he's even said that he might. I can't remember what his course is called. I think it's like writing efficiency or something. I don't know, or efficient. I can't remember, but whatever his course thingy is, he was thinking of putting some Obsidian content in there. His process is still practically the same, but Obsidian gives him certain things that he prefers using. So,
Yeah.
and the plugins are also there. Wow, I'm really blurry.
Yes, you are. I think it's just the way it works. Yeah, that kind of is. It is like Matt's going from Integromat to Automate. Yes, it is. It's not going to happen. But that's an interesting... bringing up Automate. Oh! I assume you've seen the news. Are you still kind of involved with the Notion-y news and stuff? What are your thoughts on Notion's acquisition of Automate?
I think it makes sense. I think I understand why they did it. But I'm not sure what they plan to do with it moving forwards. Obviously, integrations and automations, and I'm guessing automations in app, because I know Akshay spoke about that last year, doing in app automations at some point in databases, which would be really nice and really cool. But I think we spoke about this on a podcast episode that'll be coming out next week. Hint, hint. But we spoke about automations and how and how they're useful, but not really needed in a lot of ways. Like, hello, Nerdy Notion here. We're back. Yes, we are back. Well, we're back for a one-day stream. Maybe we'll do streams more frequently. I don't know, once a month maybe. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, so I think when it comes to the automations in Notion, it makes sense. But as I said in the podcast, like the apps that I use have direct automations with the apps that I have. So there's no sort of like, I need to set the automation up, or I need to double check anything, or I need to make sure the API has access to the right page, the right database, or whatever. And it doesn't miss certain information when it comes in. I know that you've had some stories.
Yeah, I have had so many times when I've been trying to set up automations. When they work well, but when they don't work, they really don't work. And some of the times, especially with some of the automations, the permissions, it just is so slow. You spend more time trying to set up the automations than you save by just doing it manually, which is kind of a question of like figuring out which is better. And then you got to bug fix and error fix, and especially with the Notion API still in beta, still, even now. Come on, Notion. I would really love to see in-app automations. That would be really powerful and really useful for those who use it. Because there are some things like, say, for example, automatically updating a status after a deadline goes beyond 2-3 days. Please do that internally, because otherwise I have to go via Integromat. I have to then try and search for the database entry, then like try and check the status. It's so darn annoying and takes too long. Although I'm kind of, interestingly enough, if you follow me on Twitter, you know I've kind of started playing with spreadsheets again. But I've been finding that the spreadsheets are a useful like middle ground It's like
Mm.
it's in the middle for backup purposes because we all loves our backups. Even Danny likes backups now. Check out next week's podcast episode. Hey!
Ish.
Oh, come on, you love it. But yeah, I lost my train of thought because I was too busy ridiculing you because it was too much fun to do so. It's been so long. It's been so long. That's what's
You were talking
yeah.
about.
You have a point there, but there's certain things that formulas can't do. And that's where my kind of like an example, I have a client who does copywriting and they enjoy the Kanban view of going from one to the other to the other to the other. They go through the whole process in one go. And so being able to automatically change the type after a certain amount of time, or automatically updating the deadline, or sending a notification, or just something. Because like another thing that I would love to see, and actually there is an app called The Gist, which can sort of do this. And it's kind of cool. It's like renaming names. So you use formulas, and then the formula can rename the page, which is really, really cool. But
That's.
it's yeah.
I was just going to say that's where I think I would love to see Notion go when it comes to in-app automations. Is in some way have something trigger a formula. Because if you
Yes.
can trigger a formula, you have all the power of the formulas, and that's where recurring tasks can happen way easier because you can just have a trigger. Oh, that's done, tick box, now trigger that formula, change the date, done. And because the trigger can then, hopefully, fingers crossed, change something else, instead of ticking the box and that's it, you can tick the box, it will change the date, and then uncheck the tick box, and then you have recurring tasks, done. But yeah, we've got to wait for that one. I mean, that's essentially what Todoist does for recurring tasks. You tick the tick box, it changes the date, and then unticks the tick box. Done. You can do the
Yeah.
change date bit. It's just the manual untick is just not there.
If this then that inside of
IFTT.
Notion. Oh, that will be absolutely wonderful. It's like one of the common things, like even when I first started doing it, everyone was like, can we do a formula so that when you tick a date, when you tick done, it will change the date when it was done. And it's like, no, you have to do it the other way around. And it's like, yeah, but I don't want to do it the other bloody way around. It's like, there are such tiny things in Notion which are still, even now, very frustrating.
I think so this actually relates to the comment I got on the YouTube video. I said like the main differences is why I use Obsidian over Notion, but some of the irritations and friction points I found with Notion were so nuanced and niche that most people won't come across them. So they're just not worth bringing up. I mean, the roll up reading not as a date, just for formulas, you're just like, why read a string? Why read it as a string? Why not a date? It comes out as a date. And anyway, there's so many small things like that irritate me, and obviously the triggers and those sort of things. And unless you're a real power user of the application, those friction points just aren't there. And lots of people that share their Notion templates, they don't have those problems. So there's no point moving. Just stick with it, use it, work with it.
Yeah, and often it is like this is a Notion nerd channel where we are nerds, where we were just going to complain about all the tiny little things that happen in Notion that we don't like. I mean, my one at the moment, and I think everyone is starting to see this, like, I think one change from when we last did this and streamed is the level of power users and beginner users and intermediate users I think it's shifted. I think there's a lot that has shifted since we did like regular streams on Notion, around Notion. Like I'm noticing more people who are just like introducing themselves to Notion are able to use the features that when we started or when we were streaming, they were classed as intermediate/advanced. Like most people have a formula in their system even when they're kind of early days, which I still don't believe is a necessary feature. You can do a lot without formulas. But most people learn formulas now because the space is now more saturated than it ever was. which is
Oh
a good
yes.
and bad thing, which means learning is available everywhere and it's really easy. I mean, even to the case of like the courses that were available, you had the one that I helped with, the Keep Productive one, where the price was just completely dropped. Like the price was really severely slashed, if I remember rightly, because now that Notion has become this new space. I mean, I don't know why Francesco decided to do it, but he did it. But like, because now Notion is, there's so many Notion creators. Every single day there's a new Notion creator trying to kind of break into the world of Notion. And so now there's a lot more potential. Like, you can learn basically everything, even more so than
I
you could
think
before.
I was going to say, I think Notion has become kind of a business app as well as a normal app. So there are lots of people obviously making templates and doing etc. So the standard of being able to sell a template has gone up. So you need to understand the basic skills. And because there are so many videos explaining it, lots of people have the what I would class as the fundamental skills of using the application. They kind of have that down. It's the okay, how do I actually put all this together to make this workflow or to make this make sense? And those are the skills that still I think lack with a lot of like beginner users. I've seen lots of people use formulas, but I'm looking at it, I'm like, why are you using a formula there? You could just have a linked database instead, or you could just have an auto filter or self-reference filter or whatever. But they're using what they know to solve the problem, which makes total sense. Right? That's what they've got at the point of time. It's being able to see all the features and pick the ones you want. I was doing I was working with one of the clients I still work with in Notion, and they were building out a formula, but they were using like 7 or 8 different functions to do something that one function could do. And I get that it's a learning process, but I was looking at that like, wow, you've gone like over there, and then you come back round. And those are the problems that I think that the consultants, the teachers, the Notion templates, those are the problems I think they should be trying to solve rather than this is how you use Notion. Because like you say, those fundamental skills I think they're not easy, but they're much more accessible now.
I think it's accessibility. It's much, much, much more accessible than it ever has been. And also, it's like the fact that learn formulas when you need to learn them, because, like, you know, Esme's just said, I still go to a nerdy Notioneer when I need a formula because I still don't get it. Yeah, because, like, you don't necessarily need to get it. It's not about understanding it anymore, because also there's these huge collections of information now on formulas and how to do formulas and how to create formulas. It's amazing, you know, which I
It's a world
really,
on its own.
yeah. Oh yeah, it absolutely is, and there are so many different ways of doing it. Like,
I think it's kind of like there's kind of like with note taking with each app there's kind of like a specialty in each sort of app, and I think formulas is one specialty in Notion. Even when you look into business, like every job you have, there's like those people that are good at that one thing, like the IT department, oh that's the hardware person, that's the software person, and in Notion you've got that's the formula person. Most people can do databases and blocks, but some people just get formulas, other people don't. Some people get aesthetics, other people don't. And ideally, you'd have all of it, but you don't really need formulas. They're just, a lot of the time, they're a nicety.
and they just kind of expand on it. So, what have you been doing with yourself since our last wonderful stream together?
That was 7 months ago. What have I been doing with myself? I have been going around the houses doing lots of research in practically every area of science, neuroscience, psychology, biology, anatomy and physiology, biochemistry. So yeah, been learning lots. And I would say a Research Rabbit is a video I've recently published, and Research Rabbit is incredible. I absolutely love the application. I see John's face. It is a great application, and I'm using it a lot. And Esme, I know we spoke briefly. I am actively looking at doing a PhD. So Esme knows that I was looking around doing a PhD and I wasn't sure what I'm going to do it in. I'm still not 100% sure what I'm going to do it in, but I think educational neuroscience is a direction I'm moving towards because my undergraduate degree was in sports coaching, my postgraduate degree was in strength and conditioning, essentially high performance. So potentially looking at doing a neuroscience, high performance PhD-ish thing, but what specifically, I really don't know. I'm looking potentially into like consciousness and what I called it 4D vision in my blog. But essentially, looking at consciousness and how we perceive the world using memories and how we create memories. Basically, like I could go like really nerdy, but yeah, no one cares about dendrites and how sodium potassium channels create memories. So I'll leave it there.
Woo! There was a woo. A woo for you.
So yeah, that's what I've been doing, and the channel has kind of mimicked that shift. So the videos are focused on the note taking aspect, and I'm looking at. I said this to you actually. I said this to John. I spoke to John before this stream. I was saying that Veritasium has done a great job in the physics world, and the physics girl and Smarter Every Day, and those channels are amazing. And when you look at Hank Green, amazing biochemistry. But when it comes to neuroscience, I've been looking so much, and all the neuroscience is they go through the myths and the hacks very, very briefly, but you don't really understand what's going on behind it. Or you listen to a long podcast that's like an hour, 2 hours long, and they just say loads of hormones and neurotransmitters, and you just get lost within 5 minutes. You sit there and go, okay, is this a podcast or an academic article? Like, what am I listening to? And I feel like there needs to be a bridge somewhere in the middle, which is kind of where I'm at the moment, and that's where I kind of want the videos to go. Sort of me demystifying the. I mean, we still don't understand neuroscience, but demystifying some of the things that they talk about. When I hear adenosine, like last week, I heard adenosine, and all I hear is hormone. That's it. I don't know what it does. Now I know caffeine affects it, and loads of other things affect it. It's part of the SCN, circadian rhythm, essentially for sleep. So loads of other stuff. But I now know what that is. But I can't find any of that on YouTube. If you want to find that on YouTube, you've really got to really go like dive deep, which I don't want to do. So I figured let's share some of that. But and obviously using Obsidian to do that. But Notion, I don't think would help me with that, with the way that I'm doing my notes. But I may try. I may see what's going on. So, John, what have you been doing in the last 7 months, other than
Crying in the
working?
corner. Yeah, basically working. Yeah, so like my business, the way that I ran my business kind of shifted quite rapidly, which is why we had to pause the podcast. And I moved from just Notion into like the using every single part of my hyper nerdy brain that doesn't stop thinking and talking and wondering and asking questions, and translating it to English for business people. Because I mean, us here, we're all pretty big hyper nerds. We could talk about deep level stuff and it would be very fascinating and fun. And we understand how to use that. We know what we can do with it because we have the time to go and research, diving into the, well, as the Nerdy Notioneer said, the deep web of YouTube, and being able to do those deep dives because we can. But also, it's in the business world, there is this bullshit nonsense which has been driving me insane for ages of like, for those who haven't seen this week's episode, which was live today, around. See, look at that. Hey, see, I know what I'm doing.
Have you got a link? Have you been professional? Put a link in the description.
Yes.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have. There we go. I was going to say look in the link in the description, but I wasn't sure if it was there.
I am a PP.
Professional
podcaster. They don't
podcaster.
have time.
For anyone watching on the replay, professional podcaster.
Oh yeah, professional podcaster. To be fair, if anyone is watching this shit, they know what it means.
Fair.
But yeah, we were kind of talking about this and had a real big deep dive into like business advice sucks. It is so like generalized, non-specific, do what everybody else does, because you're told to do it, not because you want to do it or have any kind of thoughts on how to do it. He's looking up in his obsidian now. I can see it. I'm gonna embarrass you and put up obsidian right now. No. And it's like, it's just so generalized and
Muted myself so you
non-specific.
couldn't hear all the tapping.
It's just, yeah, individualized medicine is better than general advice. I also recorded a episode on my racket talking about like the bio individuality of business, which is an incredibly long way of saying exactly what you just said. And it's like how everyone is unique, every business is unique. We're not SaaS apps, we're not like software as a service apps. We are humans going into lifestyle entrepreneurship. It is a lifestyle for us. We love what we do, we care about what we do, but it's a lifestyle business. And so it has to come deep from who we actually are and designed around how we are. And the problem is that traditional business advice is do what I say, otherwise you're broken. And so it causes so many like business owners to just fall apart and like feel like there's something wrong with them. Then we layer on productivity as well. It's like, make sure you do this, make sure you do that. You got to do this. You got to be up 6 a.m. every morning. That like going against what we've been saying for ages. And I know you have something to talk about that 6 a.m. every morning thing.
I could rant.
and so my focus is now moving into that space of like, hey, you're not broken, you just don't know what you want. And it all stemmed from Notion, because Notion's power meant I could actually figure out how I worked. It was the only way I could figure out how I worked. And then I realized, hey, I don't actually have to copy everything else. And so I'm taking all of the nerdy next level shit, metacognition, learning, psychology, sociology, everything, hypnosis, suggestion, like all of it. And I'm now running a business on building a simple business, a balanced business.
I'm curious. You mentioned hypnosis. Do you practice hypnosis?
Sorry, what? Hypnosis?
Do you practice? Yeah. Do you practice hypnosis?
I can actually. I trained as a teenage hypnotist, so I can do hypnosis. Do I anymore? No, because no one's brave enough.
Brave enough. Maybe brave is the right word. So, do you get hypnotized yourself, or are you the one doing it most of the time?
I'm the one doing it most of the time.
Why don't you get hypnotized yourself?
Because I know what they're doing. So there's this huge disconnect. So this leads quite nicely, and it's a bit of a tangent. I went to see Darren Brown this past weekend, and he actually did one of the things that I knew how to do and I'd actually done on my wife before, and friends, and it was very interesting to be on the other side. But because hypnosis is very like, there is a lot of theory and a lot of theoretical stuff that once you know it, you can always hear it, you can always sense it, you can always see it, and unless and general in a generalized sense, most hypnosis is very surface level because it expects you not to know what's going on. Once you understand what's going on, it starts to become harder for that. Not harder, but you have to use different techniques. You have to kind of double down on your suggestion and make the mind go away.
So is it about knowing what's going on, or is it about accepting what's going on?
Or yeah, it's about like
not
about
listening to those thoughts.
Yeah, and not accessing the knowledge of what's going on.
Because my understanding is there's different activities in the brain when you get hypnotized. So you're shutting off. You're not shutting off. You're just not actively using those action potentials in your brain for memory. So you essentially not think about something, but if you're not thinking about something, you're actively not thinking about it, which is obviously
kind of a whole
difficult.
Yeah. But yeah, it was taking all that I learned around the power of suggestion, around like hypnosis specifically. It was something that I did because I found it fun and interesting, and it was fun to make myself disappear or make people forget their names and count to 10 on their fingers and forget the number 8, so they counted to 11, and then looking at their really confused face when they think they've suddenly got 11 fingers, even though rationally they know they have only 10. And it was something that I did in the past. Go on.
They have 8 fingers and 2 thumbs.
Oh, aren't you so funny? But yeah, it's bringing me right back around. Business advice, I think, focused on the fancy front end of things and not on the hard, dirty work of the back end of things. It's not even that. It's focused on what someone else has done. It's focused on what someone else has done, and that's literally it. And assuming that because someone else has done it, because it works for me, it's going to work for everybody else. And the idea, kind of where my business has turned, it's got into a case of, let's actually figure out what business advice is good for you by teaching you how to think about your business. It's like being able to discern what works and what doesn't, because the business advice in itself is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's the same as like the 6 a.m. wake ups have scientific basis, and things do work. All productivity advice, well, the vast majority of productivity advice works for someone, otherwise it wouldn't exist. But it's about whether it's going to work for you. And so my business is turning into like helping people figure out how it works for them instead. Meanwhile, also, yeah, go on.
I was going to say it's the factory analogy. Like you have something goes in, you put this on it, this comes out. And this is where I see a lot of advice, which is why I say individualized medicine is better. Advice will give you the same results as the person that is giving the advice. That's why they're doing it. The idea is essentially for them to make you exactly like them, but not quite as good as them, because obviously they don't want you to outperform them in their own area, their own field. So they're making clones of themselves ish, just not quite as effective. So you need to change it in some way, whether that's change the context, take something out, put something in, or use something from somewhere else. But that requires thought and effort. And if you don't have those skills to look at those other things to learn, then again, you're looking for another factory to go in. And that's where I mean, my personal view on a lot of courses is courses are factories. In a lot of cases, they're sort of, you go through them and everyone is sort of expected to get similar results out the end. But it's normally the community that brings in those other things, those other skills, those other acknowledgements of knowledge that you can apply to yourself. But that is the individualized medicine in those courses. It's not the course content a lot of the time, because the content's normally everywhere. It's the communication and their interpretation of the content that makes the difference.
Yeah, it's about, like, from my perspective, it's around, in business we're taught we're broken. Like, in life in general, you could expand out to life in general. There's something wrong with you, you've got to fix yourself. And kind of my philosophy is, you're not broken, you just don't know how to use what you've got. You don't know how to figure out how you work best. The solutions, just like in Notion, when going back to the Notion kind of philosophy, as this is a Notion thing, sort of, not really. It's like what properties to use. What do you name your databases? Why do you name your databases? How do you define a database for yourself? How do you know what databases to create? It's that higher level understanding of you, so that you can discern what's important. You can go, cool, yeah, I like what he said there, but it doesn't fit me, and this is why. And being able to, like, it's like everyone's like, you've got to do this kind of social media. You got to do this, and we're risking going into a whole nother rant of, like, literally what we did in the first episode. It's like, got to do social media in a certain way, otherwise you've got to use, like, for example, in Notion, you've got to use August Bradley's PPV, because that is the best possible solution. Well, I hate PPV. It's too much. It's over-engineered for my brain. But that is only my viewpoint. It's like the expectation that because you can because you like Notion, you use PPV or Para or this or that or this system or that system. It's like trying to force people into a box that they can never actually fit in, because every single one is different. Every single person, even the people here, we all work slightly differently. Although we all have similar interests, we work differently. Fundamentally.
This is, I have no idea why this came into my head. PDFs. How do you work with PDFs in Notion?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
I literally, are you talking like for note taking?
Just like PDFs, like do you? Because in academics, obviously,
Yeah.
articles are PDFs, and I was just thinking because you mentioned earlier that you're looking into more sciencey articles, and they're obviously PDFs unless you're copying and pasting the scripts.
No, I've
Notion.
tried that. That does not go well. It
Nah.
really doesn't. It's really funny. At the moment they're just in there, which is another one of the big like hitting points for me is I can't search what's in that PDF. So if there's a certain statement or something, I can't find it. I don't know whether Rome can either. Sorry, Obsidian. Can Obsidian search PDFs?
It can't search the text of the PDF, but what I do to kind of work around it ish is I don't want the PDF like itself as the note because it's the same as the video. I could embed a video and there you go. I've got the note. No, I don't. So what I do is I use Adobe Acrobat to highlight different sections. And then I have kind of like an accompanying note in Obsidian where I don't export the notes, but I bring the notes from. So I have the PDF in Obsidian anyway, so I can see the Obsidian file, the PDF file in Obsidian, and then I have the accompanying note next to it, and I have the highlighted points next to it, so I can go back to them easy. But it's reworded in my own words. So instead of having Aceta, colon, and all the other words and stuff, I actually have words that make sense to me there, so I can then search that page. So I'm searching the highlightable points that I've taken from the abstract, which is what I do with blogs, articles, videos. Anyway, not academic articles as in like web articles and blogs, and then academic articles are the PDF stuff.
So this is a really good idea, which has just vanished. Cheers for that. Bring it back. There we go. I just embed the PDFs in the Notion page. Then I have a column beside to take notes. You can search PDFs with Control F. If you're in the same page. Yeah, and that's something. And I have a feeling my brain is like Readwise is creating something so that you can add highlights to PDFs. At the moment, what I do is when I highlight in PDFs, I use it in the browser and highlight and then add to Readwise if it's certain notes, which then syncs with my Notion, which then has an integral map thing to go into my A&E, because why the feck not? So it's how I use it, and I am going to be exploring. So I've been doing a lot more like reading on paper as well, which is another thing of like sometimes I have massive like some of the books I'm reading are incredibly in depth. They are more academic books than they are like I'm trying to think of the right word for it, like pop. It's kind of like the synthesized version.
Public books. They're public books.
Yeah. And
general
so,
population. Gen pop.
Gem pop books.
It's a term from S&C. Like when you're looking at athletes, you're either working with athletes or gen pop or high performance. Like athletes are people that they're like semi-professional athletes. And then you've got the high performance athletes, which are like the Olympics, the World Championships, etc. And then you've got the Gen Pop. the Gen Pop's like everyone else.
Yeah, and so those books are incredibly wordy and sometimes ridiculously wordy, like over wordy, just cramming words in for the sake of it. And that is really inefficient for like effective note taking. And like being able to go on.
I was going to say, I find so academic articles are very like on the nose, to the point, and they use loads of jargon and lingo within that field of research to be specific about what they're talking about, which Google define as your friend. But with books, this is something I was talking with someone in the comment section about. When it comes to books, a lot of academics, when they write books as if they're writing a thesis,
Yeah.
and they justify and rationalize every sentence that they say, and it's just over contextualized when you're
Yes.
reading the book. So you have to fully understand the context, the area, the research, the topic to understand the sentence that they're talking about. And then they can drastically switch ideas because they know what they're talking about, obviously. They will drastically switch ideas. And if you're not with them on that, you will get lost quick, which is one of the reasons I don't read books, because you can get lost so quick in what it is they're talking about because you're not their brain.
Yeah. And so that's happened with me. It's like, how can I take notes on something this dense? And originally it was highlight in my Kindle or highlight with the Readwise app, trying to Readwise, bring it into Readwise, bring it out, then highlight and summarize from there. And then I have to summarize, which means it's more effort for me to have to be thinking about it, which I want to make it as easy as possible for me to work. Like for me to bring ideas and pull things together. That's it. Anything other than that is just too much. Just to catch everybody up. Hello, Lizzie. And also, hello, Jill. Nice to see you. The gang is back together. Anyway, like some of the gang.
Yes.
Oh, nothing changes. Yeah, we're just having a conversation around. I don't even know what anymore. I kind of went on a
Well,
on a.
the reason I went into PDFs is because when it comes to the toolkit that we use, I obviously I mentioned Adobe Acrobat in there. I use Obsidian, but Notion is a great tool. But there's other tools in the toolkit that we use. Like everyone just has them, and this is where like moving with the podcast. Even though we are Notion nerds, there are other tools in our stack. There are other things like backing it up behind it that help us do other stuff. Like you can't have a community on Notion; it wouldn't work very well. Which is why we have a Discord. And you can't really use Notion as a website. I'm not a big fan of it. I know John has shared his opinion on a podcast recently. But yeah. But it's still doable. It's one of those. It's one of those things we said like last year. Just because Notion can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, and yeah, we did. I went on huge anti website Notion builder rant in the podcast, which you're just gonna have to wait till next week. Link in the description. And like,
But yeah, so the podcast is, even though it is still Notion nerds, because what Notion has done is has helped us understand systems. Like I've understood my system better through I use Notion for ages, but it helped me understand some of the things that I actually needed moving forwards in my note taking going into the PhD. So I actually moved away from it. But without using Notion, I wouldn't know to go away from it. So the Notion Nerds podcast is still about Notion, but it's about what we've learned using Notion or from Notion or because of Notion, and then other things behind it. So the whys behind using an app, using a page, a database, or anything like that. So it's not just a how-to Notion; it's a how-to business, note-taking, research, life, universe, world thing.
yeah, and that's actually really well defined of like what it's really all about. It is about what we've learned through using Notion, and and figuring out how we work best and where we find the most joy and where we find enjoyment and where we find things that are exactly what we need. I am going to go and comment on this comment. I was going to leave it, but I can't. I tried.
I know exactly what comment it is as well.
Do not build your business identity around an app. No, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to press this button. Please do not do it. It's really important that you don't do it. Danny will catch up to realizing what I did in a few minutes because he can't actually see what I'm doing, and then he'll probably laugh.
I guessed.
It's like when it comes to apps like Super and I think Fruition is now just dead because of the recent update to Notion, and that is actually part and parcel of the darn point of what I'm trying to make. Super websites aren't actually that good. Sorry. Unless you know CSS code and you know how to use it effectively and you want to dive deep into that and you have more time than you have money, which is kind of why people use Notion, originally used Notion in the first place. That's the common thing. It's like, you've got more time. You don't actually want to get things done. But in this case, I really do believe it. If you're going to invest time in Super, you're going to have to use CSS. If you're going to learn to use CSS, you might as well do it bloody properly. You might as well use an actual, either build it from scratch or use stuff like Webflow, which is a far better way of working because it's kind of a similar thing. You actually learn CSS by building your website visually. And it's free, I think. One website is free or like really low cost, I think. I need to double check that, I don't know for certain. Or WordPress with visual plugins.
I mean, my website is all on WordPress, like Bluehost and then WordPress, and it's obviously I don't use Notion, so I wouldn't use it anyway. But the reason it's WordPress is I think I brought this up kind of on the podcast, but some apps just are not going anywhere. Like there are some apps, there's some software, there's some tools that just aren't going anywhere. Google is not going anywhere. Evernote, as much as I dislike the tool, is not going anywhere. WordPress is not going anywhere. Notion probably isn't going anywhere, but it's going to make changes that are going to affect things in the future. And when I look at Evernote had a massive stint of like nothing, no updates, and now it's got loads of updates, and some people just don't like the updates, so they've left the app because they don't like the updates. And it could be the same with Notion. So I don't disagree with what you've said, but I think for people to have a place to start, it's useful to use Notion, but obviously don't make your entire identity about Notion. That bit I agree with.
And a comment from Jill here. It's like, I feel WordPress has got too complex. Notion I can get a handle, WordPress I can't anymore. That's experience. That's nothing more than like you've spent time with it. And also, I think we literally spoke about this about productivity tools today. That's going to happen next week. It's like, it's complicated because we've made it complicated. WordPress can be incredibly simple. It can be incredibly basic. It can work. Like your website, for example, is stupidly simple.
I was going to say, I've got a theme on it. I haven't done anything to the theme apart from change the title to Danny Hatcher. I don't know, I've got like 4 plugins, maybe at a push. I think it's like 3, but it's literally like one is Yoast,
yeah.
I don't even use it. It's just there. I've got a scrolly plugin I don't even use anymore. I was like playing with it, but like going into WordPress now, it's basically the same as Notion. I've got my main screen, I've got my left sidebar, I go to the left sidebar, I click post, new post, edit with Elementor because I use Elementor, and then just drag and drop things just like Notion.
Yeah.
I don't do that much. I mean, with my posts, it's quite literally
Text block.
well, yeah. I mean, I have a plugin. I can't remember the name of it, but I clone my posts. So with my newsletter, my podcast, and my blogs, I clone a previous one. I quick change the title. I go into the page. I just change the text, and then I publish. So I essentially have templates in WordPress. I just push clone, and that's what I do every day because I write my blog. I speak my blog out loud on my phone downstairs, walking outside, whatever, on Obsidian. It syncs back to my computer. I then will go through my blog later on. So I actually write down words. I condense the thoughts, put it into Obsidian so I can link it with everything. So all of my notes are linked, which is what note taking is about, linking ideas together and actually doing something with them. And then I just copy and paste it into WordPress. So yeah, simple.
And Esme, you already have it because you've got one of the add-ons. You've already got that plugin, if I remember rightly. Like like all tools, what I actually mean is my service provider told me I need to update my WordPress site and I haven't a clue how to do it. There's a button. If you look at your black bar at the top, there is this spinny thing up there that says update. Just click it. And then you just go through the thing and update it like that. If you need help, then I can record it. Updating WordPress is
I see WordPress and like Obsidian and Rome and those sort of apps. They're very similar because there's external plugins. This actually relates to what you were saying. I think it was on the podcast episode that went out today. It might have been the one actually that we recorded this morning. But when people look at Obsidian, it looks complicated because of all the plugins and all the markdown. But you strip all of that back, and it's literally a word processor with a backlink, which is a hyperlink, essentially, just a different way of looking at a hyperlink. That's all Obsidian is, because the file explorer is the same as your files on your computer. You just have access to it in there rather than having to open up the My Document bit. And the other plugins are just added things. That's what plugins are. And WordPress is the same. It could be as simple as a word processor or as complicated as as complicated as you want.
Yeah, and I think that's and also the risk with tools like that, all of the tools, is the fact, excuse me, is that people who are sharing their stuff show advanced stuff because they're kind of not necessarily trying to prove it, but they're trying to prove that they can do things because it makes them feel good. It makes them feel like they've succeeded somewhere. Especially on the go on.
I was going to say, I think when it comes to sharing information, lots of people overlook, including myself previously. I learned this lesson when coaching. I learned this lesson when working with high performance athletes. I learned this lesson, and then when sharing videos, I learned the lesson again. Like when you share things, you share what you're interested in at the time, and there are assumptions and things that you've learned, and you just assume people know, or how can they not know? This doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't they think like this? And it's those assumptions that like beginner users just overlook. So a perfect example, because everyone here knows Notion, one of my first videos, I assumed everyone knew where the wide bit, like how to change the page to wide. So I didn't bother including it. But my sister, who hadn't looked at Notion ever, she tried making the page, but the columns were just like so narrow. She's like, how did you get that? And I completely overlooked it because I didn't think I'd need to include how to make a page wide, which is why I then, okay. And then you start explaining all you think it's basic, but it isn't basic. You've just done it so many times. So yeah, when sharing videos, it's very obvious whether the person has either like just found this thing out and is just explaining it because I've just found this thing out, I'm going to explain all this stuff and forget the beginning stuff, or they're explaining something but they're not really sure who they're explaining it to. They're sort of just talking about it, because some people just say, hey, look at this stuff, I'm telling you what I'm doing, but then they don't know who they're talking to, so they're just talking. And if you're new, you're lost. If you're advanced, again, you're lost. So you have to be at the same stage that person is at.
Yeah, so Lizzie just put a comment up saying that's why I love Red Gregory's explaining. Yes. Yeah, because she just goes deep every single time. It's hard to, not necessarily hard to watch, but when you know stuff, it becomes difficult to watch because it's like, yes, yeah, cool, good, thank you, this is wonderful. But it is beautiful in the case of like helping everybody be on the same page, helping everybody work from the same place. And I absolutely love that, because that's how it needs to be. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A nerdy notion here. So I started to give step-by-step instructions in my guides that include every step, including what I think. Yeah, it's the curse of knowledge. It's the common thing. It's like you don't know what you don't know, and then you know, and then you think you know more, and then you realize you know nothing.
I mean, I did a presentation in my PPD assignment in my master's. I think it was second year. PPD standing for Personal Professional Development, and I did a presentation, and I had on screen a PowerPoint presentation, very simple. Had on screen 4 squares, and then I filled in the square, so it was like filled in 3 empty squares, and then I filled in the 3 squares, and then it expanded. So I went from 4 squares, and then I had like 3 on that side, and then and others down the bottom. It's like, oh, and I filled in all those squares, and then it got bigger, and obviously it expanded. And that analogy is what I see in my head. And that original filled in square, it suddenly just gets so far behind because you're now like 4 layers in this way, 4 layers in diagonal, 4 layers in down. Like, you're not thinking about that original back square. You're thinking about the next square or the one you've just done or the 2 you've just done. You're not thinking 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 steps back, which is why when speaking to professors and academics, they are like 100 steps in that direction. You're all the way back there. You're not going to get it, which is why the idea of being like that 1 page ahead of the person you're helping is very useful, or the ability to go back that far.
Yeah, and I think when you reached a certain point, it becomes very difficult to do that. Hi, Gail. Welcome to the party.
Yeah, what Red Gregory does with her videos is it's amazing for beginner users or people that struggle with formulas.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, for like myself, I watched the first few videos of hers, but now when I watch them, I'm going to be honest, I just skip all the way to the very end, and then I'm like, oh, could I do that? Yeah, I'll probably do it like this, and then I'll like go halfway through the video to have a look at the formula. I'll like scroll across, I'm like, yeah, that's the same formula I do, and then I jump out. So I know watch duration is pants, and she probably sees a little spike towards the end if she was watching my own like thing, but because a lot of that information isn't needed, and that's where like sharing information becomes really difficult for the creator, because you need to work out, okay, am I talking to beginners? Am I talking to intermediate? Am I talking to advanced? And what is advanced for me? Which is like, I said Veritasium. I spoke about Veritasium recently in the podcast, and he does a very good job of going, here's a misconception. Here's something that everyone understands. Like Gen Pop understands this thing. Let's go 100 steps deep and explain this really complex topic and ask questions about this stuff. And then let's bring it back and say, okay, this is what it actually means to the real world. He does that very, very well. He's done a PhD in it, so hopefully he understands that. And that is where I think videos need to start moving for education, because you grab the Gen Pop, you keep them interested when you do get complicated, but then you bring it back so they actually know what you're talking about, rather than getting people interested, talking about complicated stuff, and then just leaving them lost, because that's so annoying. And as someone looking at videos like that, I just get lost. I'm just sitting there like, can you bring it back in? Where's the relation? Where's the sense? Where's the earth?
Context. Why does it matter?
Yeah.
Why is it important?
Exactly.
It's the same going back to the topic earlier about business advice. There's no context. It's like, do this, think like that, copy my process. No context given. No understanding, no thoughts, no what I've done, what I've worked through, what I've dealt with, what things I understood before. That's the problem, is there's never any context with business advice, or very limited context with business advice. And so from my perspective, what I do for business owners now is I take the really cool nerdy shit that we all love and bring the context back. I think we're both working in the same direction, just like that way. It's like, and I think that's where the Notion Nerd podcast is going. It's like taking what we learned from Notion and turning the context into English for everybody.
So I blogged about this about a month ago, and I know you're a gamer, so I know you know what Minecraft is, and I know Esme knows what Minecraft is as well. But I sort of said I used knowledge, an understanding of knowledge, and I had Minecraft in my head. So kind of like a 2D Mario Bros, sort of like Minecraft vision in my head. And when you start digging down for diamonds, or whatever you're looking for. You can dig real deep, and you can look straight up and see where you've been. As soon as you go in a direction, you lose roughly where you are. You don't really know what's going on, but you can keep going down, you can keep going up, and if you go up, you're going to come out at a different point. So you're going to come out at a different idea, a different topic, a different thought. But when you're down in the caves mining around, you can easily get lost. And when we get lost all the way down at bedrock, mining around in caves, it's so easy to be like, where am I in the world? But we don't carry a map. We don't carry a map when we're doing research most of the time. We just go all over the place. And finding our way back is very difficult. So you need someone or something to navigate yourself back to where you were. And that's either going through other problems, i.e. digging back up to the surface and then finding your way back that way, or going through the path that you were in. Going through the path helps memory, helps learning, which is why I try to take that route, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. You could, a Minecraft reference here, you go back through a cave, you look at the cave like, I recognize this, but I don't remember where my hole is. And you start running around, there's the cobblestone that I placed doing that thing. What was that thing again? Minecraft issues here. And then you look at the lava and you realize, actually, that wasn't my cobblestone, that was just lava and water. Damn it. But that's the analogy I have in my head whenever it is I'm exploring. I don't want to go too far into the cave that I get lost, and I want to be able to keep my context when it is so I can come back to the surface. And that helps me remember, okay, don't go too far, remember how to come back, or at least know like where up is. Don't get disorientated.
Yeah, and that's kind of a skill, like when you are at that level of nerd shit, you've got to learn how to use. And then when it comes to teaching that to other people, that skill is hard. It's probably one of the hardest skills to learn because it just doesn't work. Because of
all the coal.
Yeah, I know. I was just like, stop laughing, don't laugh. Yeah, all the coal. And it's just about figuring out where you want to go.
Yeah.
So what are we going to be talking about in the podcast from now on?
Well, we're going to be doing a couple of things. Firstly, I'm going to try and not get excited about the stuff that I'm researching and talk about that because that will be boring. You can go to my podcast if you want to listen to that. And then I know you're talking about business stuff on your own podcast. So we're kind of merging scientific research, PhD research, note-taking, nerdiness, and then your business systems, adult, supposed like responsible people stuff. And I'm going to add something on the end of that, which is questions. We're also going to be answering questions or whether you disagree or you have your own points and thoughts, because Anchor allows us to basically get feedback from you guys. And because obviously live streams, we can see the comments, we can see what's going on. Podcasts, we can't. So if you put in a comment, whether that is on Twitter or through Anchor or however it is, if you disagree or you have a question or you want us to go deeper into something or follow up on something, then we'll do that in the next episode. And we even said that we may have an argument, just not a scripted argument, but a planned out argument about a topic. John takes one side, I take the other side, and we see what happens.
Yeah, we really want this to kind of be... There aren't very many places on the internet where geeks can geek out together. Like the education, learning, productivity geeks, where just everyone is seen together as the same and we all have different perspectives and ideas and then come together and discuss it as humans. It's always, my thing is right, your thing is wrong. It's like being part of the conversation. And for us, that's really, really important. That's really, really important for us to be able to be part of the conversation. Those faces are so fucking funny. Sorry. And here we go again with the super snazzy. Are you going to actually talk on this topic a little bit, or is it just a quick little brief look?
No, yeah. So
no,
I was
yeah.
trying to remember.
Cheers. Yeah, thanks.
I was gonna say no, but then I figured actually no, yeah, I probably will. So this is a Twitter. This is a Twitter. This is a tweet from Adam Grant. Yeah, this is a Twitter from Adam Grant. this is a tweet from Adam, and so this is literally just copied and pasted from what he said. And this, as you can see, I've linked it to our ability to communicate, and I'm actually talking about it in the recap this week, so that was nice. You can see that there. But what this relates to, so if two people agree, always, wow. Let's start that again. If two people always disagree, it's a sign that at least one of them isn't thinking critically or speaking candidly. And that's basically what you said. Like, I don't think, I'll leave that up on screen just for a second for people to read through if they want. Yeah, the link to this will be in my podcast as well if you want to know where the tweet is, but that's what it is. Just print screen. But essentially what he's saying, and what he said a couple of times, is you will always disagree. Like, you will always disagree with something with topic, whether that is a specific situation the idea or topic is about. I'm going to stop going now. Yeah, it could be like a specific thing someone's talking about, or something, a context, a person, an idea, an addition, a side tangent. There's going to be something about something someone has said that you're going to disagree with. And another note of mine, meanings are in people, not words.
Yeah.
Because everyone is going to have a different meaning to the same word. So when you disagree with someone, it's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. Oh, okay, we disagree. Why do we disagree? Let's talk about that. Let's have a conversation about that. And that is where progress happens. And those conversations normally are hard. They are hard conversations. So you need human skills, not soft skills. Don't like that. You need human skills to communicate. And that's what we want to do.
Intellectual friction isn't a relationship bug. Love this. Keep talking to me. We're in this world, and this is another thing, like, with the people that I've started working with, the focus is more on just open communication and, like, having those hard conversations that most people just avoid having. Like, disagreements, like, different perspectives of, like, the understanding that we're all just human beings and we all are... We all have a viewpoint that is just as valid, instead of it being this shouty, I am better, Notion's better than Rome, Notion's better than this, Rome's better than Obsidian, Notion's better than ClickUp. They are all good, and they are all shit.
It depends on the person.
And not just the person, but also the context of that person and where they are in their business. Like, where they are in their life, business. I always say business, but life. Wherever they are, wherever you may be. Like, as your you got another quote coming at me. It's gonna bring this. She's gonna have a little mini view. If we're gonna do this regularly, I'm gonna have a little mini view up in the top right hand corner of you just going into your search and finding it. Love it. It's all about just figuring out. Are you ready? Okay. How you figure things out.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Just in case people can't read it, I'll read it out loud. The time, environment, past experience, surrounding individuals, someone's intelligence and interpretation of the information at hand all change how things are perceived, as no one really knows you. Lacking context can prevent our way of thinking for people.
That's where I've changed the name of it.
Trustworthy notes may be may be misleading. More time and experience with the person or in the environment can give better all-round context. Abso-frickin-lutely, 1,000,000%, for goodness sake.
So this is obviously my Obsidian, but this here, I've changed the name of the note, which is why it doesn't really make sense, which is why obviously I need to rechange it. But this is how all of these notes link together. You can see down here. But the title of the note here, it depends, because context matters. And it's so important. I mean, I've linked it in 16 different places. And it applies in so many different places. I'm obviously 16. I'm coming back to it, and you can see some of the other notes I've got in here. More than one person, a philosophy of practice, way of feeling. Like, it's all related. And these are all the capture notes. So you can see that came from a podcast. That came from a Patreon thing from Andy I can't say his last name, but yeah, you can stop sharing now. So that note right there it's one of those things that, because it's just in my head, I go back to it and I can see, okay, that's what it is, and I need to read that constantly. Like, I don't need to read that constantly, but it's in my head, and when I'm revising, I got a note on that, and I can quickly go. I mean, you saw Control O. I couldn't remember the name of the note. I knew like depends on context, so that's what I typed in. Depends on context, and poof, there it is. And just seeing that and just reading it, yeah, it's so true. So I see him nodding, like, bubblehead. But context matters.
Yeah, and that's what we want to bring to the Notion Nerds. It's not just two white dudes in the UK talking about productivity, because let's be real, there's enough white dudes talking about productivity.
Yes, yes.
We want more people, more voices, and so please do share like your comments and thoughts on the episode. You can go to anchor.fm/Notion Nerds and literally leave a response, linky in the description-y, and like tell us what you think. Like talk to us about what you liked, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you agree with, what you disagreed with. So that we can keep the conversation going. Because unfortunately, with obviously your health, my schedule, these longer, bigger like live streams can't happen as regularly as they used to. Which just sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, my eye can't manage too much staring at a screen, unfortunately, which is why I stopped the streams on my channel. Actually, I don't think I've mentioned that, but yeah, I stopped streaming because I can work looking at a screen, but when I'm working, you've probably seen in the time lapse if you've watched any of the recent videos, I'm looking up, I'm all over the place with my eyes, or I have to close my eye when I'm looking at the screen sometimes. Just because the way it is, and it's not going away. It's staying there. I'm going to need a retina replacement in the next 10 years probably, and maybe even an eye replacement in the next 30 years, which is not fun, not great, but can't do F all about it. Yes, I'm pissed, but can't do anything about it, and I'm deaf in my right ear as well, so my right side's fucked. Yeah, now that I had a bit of a rant on that, yeah, so obviously I can't stream, so podcast is the next best thing.
Yeah, so we have returned. We have returned to talk more. No notion here. I just want to discuss any type of geekiness, any subject I'm open to. Gail's just put context, the code of communication which solidifies communication with some and undermines communication with everybody else. Public expression of context for planning is much needed in this world. Yeah.
Yeah, like communication is, I mean, I have a note on it that I know has over 100 references in there because ability to communicate is so dense. And I love how communication is so complicated, yet so simple.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, I have to bring this one up because I want it now. Forget TED Talks, we can have Nerd Talks.
Nice. Well, that. TED Talks, TEDx Talks.
NerdX. We should create NerdX.
I don't understand why they have different channels for those things. Like TEDx and TEDx Talks are 3 different channels because I have all 3 of them as notes in my Obsidian. Like I don't even know what you call them, like ghost notes, because I haven't actually put anything in them. They're just like, things in there, and it's just I don't know why not just same channel. Just yeah.
I don't know.
And you're allowed to say that.
Oh, absolutely. I love the idea of not knowing something. I find that quite exciting.
You sounded very British there. I find that quite exciting.
Oh, yes, darling. I find it incredibly stimulating. That sounds just rude.
I was going to say there's a different... I find it amusing how so many different mimicked British accents basically take a British accent and make it extremely patronizing. And I listen to it and I just think, no, the only time someone in the UK is going to speak like that if they're trying to take the piss.
Like that.
Yes. Right. Left,
Right.
up, down, in, out, shake it all about. You do the hanky. Yeah, so
Disgusting. We are a channel.
spit it out, boy. Yes.
Yeah, and the
Ding.
idea is, yeah, if you have things you want us to kind of talk about and chat about on the podcast, let us know. You can tweet both of us. If you don't know our names by now, then there's a problem with you. Actually, you don't know mine anymore because I've changed mine. Because of course I have. Mine is at BizSimplicity now. You're gonna
Mine's
pick.
very complicated.
Yeah, very.
It's at Danny Hatcher.
Yeah. Well, that's because you have a name that isn't basically everybody.
Lizzie. Literally, that song. Every time someone says "right," like it's just it just goes around in my head, round and round and round. It's one of those things. I don't know whether every family has it, but there's a couple of things like I find that each family has. It's just like a weird family thing, like doo doo. If anyone in this house says doo doo, everyone looks at each other and like simultaneously says like doo doo. And just starts laughing. It's become a thing, and right, left, up, down, in, out, shake it all about. It's just a thing. So yeah, I don't know whether every family has like their own thing, but yeah. Anyway.
That is a thing. That is a thing. And then obviously you've got up, down, down, left, right, BA, start, which is a whole nother level.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
A whole nother
But
level.
I am hungry. I've eaten football. I ran around for 90 minutes and we lost the game because none of my players can score a goal.
You've eaten football.
Yes, I've eaten football. That's what I feel like. I got the ball in the face like 4 times.
Okay. I thought that was just a slip of the tongue because that would have been really funny otherwise.
No,
I'm really hungry. I've eaten football.
Yeah, no, my brain. I'm not even joking. Like my brain feels like it's melting. My legs are absolutely dead, and I haven't eaten since 10. Like 10 this morning, I think. And that was lunch. I didn't have breakfast. That was lunch. So yeah, I'm testing out intermittent fasting because I preach what I practice. I don't practice what I preach. I preach what I practice. So I want to actually do the thing before I tell people to do the thing, rather than say, "Hey, you should do this thing because I read it in a book," and then they don't do it because that just drives me mad. Like, hypocrite. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox.
No. Get on your soapbox. We've had a me solo today. There you go. Have a Danny solo. Go on the soapbox.
No, it's just irritating when people like content creators. This could be blogs, YouTube, anywhere. They say stuff, but they don't do it, and you're like, if you're going to give advice, at least do it, or have some experience doing it, or just have some skin in the game. Have been in the trenches. Just do some work rather than giving advice, giving ideas when you have no place to stand on, or if you are going to say something, at least back it up with some sort of research, an academic research, not just a book or an article or a blog. If you're going to say something that is either medical, clinical advice, have some sort of research to back it up rather than just what someone else has said, because 9 times out of 10, they're going to have said something that someone else has said. So you're quoting what someone else has said that may not have any research or understanding about the thing, and it's just irritating. You're like, just reference it. Just reference where you found the idea from, please. Anyway.
You know that thing you accused me of doing where you talk for so long until you run out of breath and then breathe? You know you just did that, right? Yeah? Mm-hmm.
Yep. I know.
Yeah, show your face.
That's why I called you out on doing it, because I know I do, and it's something that I have to I have to self-check. I'm like, am I breathing? Am I breathing? No, I'm not breathing. I need to breathe before I carry on talking. Okay, and breathe. Right.
Yeah, well, we just don't work. Our brains are elsewhere. Our brains are thinking faster than the rest of our body can cope with. And yeah, like, and this kind of, to end our wonderful stream today, is like...
Intermittent fasting. Yeah. My brain was like 2 sentences after I'd actually said the thing. So, yeah.
And it's context again. You're finding out the context for yourself. Does intermitting, starving yourself for a little bit.
Intermittent.
Yeah, intermittent fasting. Does that work for you? Yes, some people it does, others no, it doesn't. And it's about testing and figuring out and actually working out what works. That's why, Everything that I
and
do
then
is tested first.
and then going really nerdy and finding out all the biological mechanisms and the biochemistry behind why it could or could not work and the pros and cons of using it for human performance.
I think that might be just people like us.
Yes. Yes. Well, maybe everyone else is interested.
Sorry, just seen Esme's comment. I can't find my mouse. I need to bring it up. Where's my mouse?
I don't eat when I'm asleep. Does that count?
Yes.
Well, technically, it does. I mean, when you look at the protocols for intermittent fasting, most of them use like I don't know, like an 18-6, like 18-6 ratio, like 18 hours of not eating, and sleep is part of those 18 hours. So yeah, technically it does. But yeah, I'm not going to go down the research rabbit hole. I love research rabbit. I'm not going to go down the intermittent fasting rabbit hole because I have too many. So this is, I've got a note on this. Formulated opinions are better than generalized statements, and I have too many generalized statements right now I think, to justify talking about it.
Will that be another podcast?
What, intermitting fasting?
Yeah, like discussions on that. Maybe we could do an episode on like your soapbox. On like,
Yeah,
that'd kind of be a good episode to do. And also, let us know
I mean,
your thoughts.
I got so many soapboxes to go on. As soon as like you go into research, you find more questions than answers. That's the way research works. And when you find things that people just don't talk about because it's too nuanced or too context specific for the video to get loads of views, you look at it and you're like, but that should be said. There should be a disclaimer saying, but this, but this thing, or but that thing. So, I mean, we could talk about it, but like I say, like formulated opinions, I think I needed before I fully talk about a topic. That's just my opinion, my ethical and moral opinion about talking about something, especially when it comes to health and clinical practices.
Has anyone done a rabbit hole tracker yet? Danny, yeah, she did one. If anyone has been keeping track of the rabbit holes they've jumped into, no, I'm using Research Rabbit to jump down really, really deep rabbit holes. Do you have that in your Obsidian, like rabbit holes? I think you did at one point.
What do you mean by rabbit holes? Is in my different like directions,
So like you basically
curiosities?
just suddenly dive into an idea and a topic, and you go really deep and just go next from next to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing.
So the way it works, because I know I can't dive into all of my rabbit holes because it's just impossible, is I have a My Curiosities page which is linked in all of my daily journals. So what my journal is me diving into one of those rabbit holes. So if I'm going down and researching something and I come up with an idea, so for example, sleep deprivation is something I've researched because sleep was something I was looking at. Sleep deprivation became a rabbit hole. I was like, I want to have a look at that. So I put that on my curiosities, and then I journaled about it. So I just did a 10-minute talk about different things, different questions. That surfaced more questions, which went on my curiosities page. But it also allowed me to then look for specific research papers that are going to answer the questions I actually had, rather than just randomly searching this big topic of sleep deprivation. I decided, sleep deprivation therapy with light therapy. And those two things, I found 7 articles on that. So that is a real deep dive rabbit hole on a specific question. But all the other questions I came up with are on my curiosities page, and I will come across them when I journal about them. So I never forget anything. That page, as you can imagine, is extremely long.
So Lizzie's asking what a soapbox is.
So I don't know where the original reference came from. I think it's when this is my understanding of the history behind it, but when there was people obviously in the streets and towns and stuff, and they stood on boxes to announce whatever it is they were talking about, and a lot of the time those announcements were people moaning about stuff, basically sharing their opinions and their values on other people, telling them that they should listen to them. So they got on a box, they stood up in front of a crowd, and they moaned. So yeah, that's basically what I did. I got on my soapbox, I stood on a box, and I moaned about something.
Da, 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 da. That's what a soapbox is.
Yeah,
Or at least
we're
that's
coming in use.
the reason we're actually using it. So yeah,
There you
and
go.
I think that's pretty much it for us today. This stream. It has been an absolute pleasure to come back on, and I think maybe we might do some more, but we don't know. But just keep an eye on both of our socials. Primarily my social, because I'm the one who actually promotes the darn thing.
I was playing football.
Well,
And I did retweet your thingy anyway, so.
yeah, but if I didn't retweet, it wouldn't have existed, though, you know.
Well, they should have the
reaction.
notifications on YouTube.
Yeah, turn on
Not that
notifications
they
on
work.
YouTube, which never bloody work. He's just put, we want more, we want more. Protest in the street.
Yeah.
So basically, all you
do
need
that.
to do, here's how it works. Peer pressure us on Twitter, talk about the podcast. If you want to see more, tell us you want to see more. Like, let us know. He's just put on my soapbox. Beautiful, Lizzie. Love it. Like, if you want to hear more, let us know you want to hear more. Like, we are very happy to talk more and more, but we want other voices. We don't want it just to be us. So please interact with us as you do here, as well as on Anchor. Send voice messages, send just normal messages. Let us know what you want to talk about, and we will talk about it. And if it's really big, we'll turn it into a live stream.
And I was going to say on that, if you have a question that you want us to have a look into, I'm happy to have a dive, have a quick dive and see what I can find about stuff, because I know a lot of people don't have the same amount of time as me, so I'm quite happy to do a bit of a deep dive on something if you are curious, and then we can talk about it. Just sort of like putting it out there.
Yeah. We are recording every week.
I said I just love talking.
Oh, really? You love talking? That's such a surprise. Then again, so do I. So yeah, I think I can do this from here. So it's anchor.fm/Notion Nerds. I don't know whether links actually work. Do links actually work? We'll find out.
Yeah, if you're an admin in the chat, it should.
Yeah.
No one else can.
Yeah, cool.
Unless the moderators.
Anchor.fm/Notion Nerds, and you can leave a comment on there. And we are available on all of the other platforms too, but Anchor's probably the best one if you want to interact with us. Anchor is a podcasting platform. It is a completely 100% free podcasting platform, created, owned by Spotify.
Yeah.
Now. And so we moved it onto there because it costs us nothing, and that means we can do it and enjoy it forever and ever. Yay. But
that's where mine's based as well.
Yeah. It's really easy to use. So yeah, that's where we'll be. You will find us there. And if you do go to the notionnerds.com website, it actually redirects to the Anchor website now. Because I'm a nerd and could do that shit. So yeah, let us know. Just keep in touch and we will do more very, very soon. Otherwise, we are going to disappear for today, and we will see you next time. Next week on the podcast, we'll hear you. And oh gosh, that's a good one.
Well, no, they will hear us. We won't hear them.
No, we will hear them.
We'll hear them listening to us.
Yes. We are listening, we know.
Oh, wait, you need to do the bye. Because they can actually see us. Click the button.
No, I'm going to keep it for just a few seconds longer.